Alright. So last week we hit on a lot of good points. We talked about things like powerlessness, and being useful and useless. So this week, or today, my question is more, in the book we saw how Miriam and Layla compared to Rashid were powerless. Do you think that powerlessness is a physical limitation or a mental limitation?
So I think that it is a mental limitation and physical because I think Miriam didn't know her own strength. I feel like she counted herself out because from the time she was young until her adulthood, she was always, mentally abused, verbally abused, so she never really had faith in herself from the beginning. And I think it's all about your upcoming. Like if your parents instill you to be like a strong woman, you're gonna be a strong woman. But if like your parents beat you down all the time, then sometimes you're gonna be like, oh well, I can't do this or I can't do this.
I agree with Taylor. For one, we do see that Miriam was abused mentally as a child. So now, usually, children who are abused mentally have a different way of seeing themselves than people who are uplifted as a child. We also see that she can endure and is adaptable. And people who can endure and can adapt have more power than I think a normal person who just sits around and lets things happen. They have more power than someone who does something like that.
I agree with both of your statements, but I believe in the book, it was a mental thing with Miriam, but when it came to Layla, I don't think it was her physical being that made her like powerless to Rashid. So I feel like because like when it came down to what he was saying to her and what the things that he did towards her, it didn't really faze her. That's why she still had in her mind that she was gonna leave and it was gonna run away and it was gonna be the end of it. But she still, she was still strong. It was just the fact that she was weaker than him that made her, powerless against him.
I agree with Gigi because, with Miriam too, they were both physically abused, and I think that messed up their mentality, like their psyche. They got in their head and made them mentally weak, or mentally powerless. So, reading the story, a lot of the characters had their own trials and tribulations and things they had to go through. Who would y'all believe? Who do y'all think was the weakest character and why, and the strongest character?
I think that Jalil was the weakest character in the book. Though he tried to show that he somewhat had feelings and cared for Miriam, in the end he was still a coward because he was unable to actually go against his own family's decision of throwing Nana away and her own child. So his cowardice made him the weakest character of all, I believe.
I think Rashid was the weakest character. And I say that because in the story you found him putting his things that he was to blame for on other people. So when his son and his wife died, when his son died, in the story they talked about how he was a drunk, and I think it was just karma basically, how he was drunk all the time and how his son died and he just lost his path. So I feel like he blamed Miriam because she couldn't get see the child, and it wasn't her fault, but I feel like he was blaming them for areas that he knew he lacked in. And I think he was weak when it came to Layla because Layla was strong and she was independent and she didn't need Rashid. And I feel like Miriam was the complete opposite and she felt like she needed him to provide for her. So it made him feel less of a man, and he didn't feel like a man when he couldn't provide for the family as well. So I feel like he was just weak overall, and he was weak for physically abusing them because that means he's insecure in some areas that he may need work in. And
For the strongest character, I'll have to go with Miriam because I feel like she endured a lot, and I feel like it takes a big person to let another woman come in your home and love that woman. So I think that is really a strong characteristic of her, and I think she's a very strong woman because she put up with a lot in her past. She put up with a lot in her marriage. She's just very strong to me.
Okay, so I agree with both Tyler and Taylor. I do think that Jamil was the weakest character, but I also think that Miriam was the strongest character because, well, for different reasons. Simply because she made so many sacrifices that a normal person probably would not make or be able to handle making. So I think, like, the fact that she risked her life for Layla and her children and Tariq to be able to have a happy life, at the end of the day, I feel like that makes her a very strong person because she thinks about them more than herself.
Yeah, I agree that Marion was one of the strongest characters because throughout the story, well, when Nana was alive, she continued to tell her, like, all you're good for is enduring. And I think throughout the story, Mariam endured a lot of things. Like, for example, the beating with her and Rashid. Rashid continued to put his hands on her. Like, she, of course, she still had her ways of, like, she still, she still had the feeling like she was nobody, like she was useless, but she learned to not just accept it, but she learned to try to get over it, not just be stuck on, like, you'll never catch her, like, just depressed or just down on her knees. She always was able to uplift herself.
Okay. And speaking of endurance, Nana said earlier in the book, it's our lot in life, Miriam. Women like us, we endure. It's all we have. Do you find that this quote is true for women throughout the book?
I agree, like, definitely that it was true. Because in the beginning, I was thinking, like, you know, why can't she have an education? Women need education as well as they need to endure. But, like, just going throughout the entire book and reading what Afghan women had to go through and what Layla and Miriam and even, you know, Mammy, everybody had to endure, I feel like it's the truth. And in real life, in perspective, like, women really have to endure a lot, like, not just the day-to-day, you know, maybe a period or here or there, but women have to endure emotional tragedies and physical everything. So I think it's true in the book and in real life.
I think it's true as well. I think that not only was it true, I think it was foreshadowed. Nana saying it, like, I think she was predicting, you know, Mary's future when she was saying, like, oh, you're gonna have to put up with a man. He's always gonna point the finger at you, even if he's wrong. Like, I think that foreshadowed her marriage with Rashid because a lot of the things that Nana warned her about is exactly what happened to her.
Okay, how were Miriam and Layla different? Although they lived in the same home, how did their ways of being raised affect their personal identity? Excuse me? Oh. How were Miriam and Layla different? Although they lived in the same home, how did their ways of being raised affect their personal identity?
I mean, in many ways they were different, like the way they were brought up specifically. Mary was brought up with just her mother, and she wasn't raised like Layla to be, you know, well educated and to be a strong person as well as a strong woman. And Miriam, and Layla, she just basically grew up with just her father who was an educator and taught her the benefits of being an educated woman. So I feel like what was the second question about them living in the house?
Huh?
What was the second part of the question?
Although they lived in the same home, how did their ways of being raised affect their personal identity?
Their upbringing was basically the reason for it. I feel like Miriam, we said that she was the strongest character because of how she was brought up. So even though it was tragic the way she was brought up and the way she is not in the marriage and the marriage in its entirety, it was, you know, a devastating thing, but she was still she's still a strong person. In the end, you can see that a lot. Layla is strong too, and she was brought up that way. But, yeah, I feel like that's what makes that character.
I think that your trials and your tribulations affect the person that you'll be in the future. So the things you go through can build you into a better person. So like with Miriam, I think, you know, she went through a lot in her childhood and in her adulthood that made her like a stronger woman in the end. And as well as Layla, she was never really, you know, she did have her little situations where, you know, the boys that squirted pee on her and things of that nature. But I think that the way she was brought up, it allowed her to have a better psyche, as Melissa said. Like, her mindset was different from Miriam. Miriam did, all she knew was to adore, and Layla was just like, I don't have to deal with this. That's why she was so quick to come back at her. She needed to do stuff, and Miriam would just sit there and take her.
Okay, one thing that we haven't discussed, and this is part of something with shame, so how do you think they have been portrayed throughout the book?
Shame.
I think it's been a lot of incidents of shame throughout the books. First starting with Nana, how when Jalil got her pregnant, how he just blew it off like, oh, she came onto me and everybody looked down on her. She was put out the house when she was pregnant with Miriam. With Miriam, how she sat outside of Jalil's house and waited on him to come out, to come out, and the next morning, she slept on his porch and stuff outside like a dog. And the next morning when the man chased her to get in the car, she saw him staring out the window. Like, that was real, like, embarrassing for her and for him too. And, yeah,
I feel like Layla, she wasn't presented with as much shame as Miriam, but I feel like she faced just in the fact that her and Tariq were such close friends that people began to look at her differently as they got older, because they began to assume that they were dating, that they were sleeping together, and that presented her with a lot of difficult decisions, and she stopped kind of hanging out with Tariq publicly to try and save face for herself. And then in the fact that she ended up pregnant by Tariq and had to find a way to recover, so she ended up marrying Rashid, even though she knew that this wasn't something that she wanted to do and probably didn't need to do.
So now, the gentleman will pose the questions that they have been writing. All right, who wants to start? Tariq?
Okay. The character of Miriam appears to be a controversial and divisive figure. She's considered a burden, a mother figure, and an attractive character at the same time. Why do you think this is, and what implications does this have for women in Afghanistan as a whole?
Okay, well, I think, like we said in the book, that women are represented in the book to show the endurance of women, how we are to handle different situations. So I feel like she was presented as a burden, a mother, and a tragic story because to show the endurance that was quoted by Sammy in the beginning.
I think it. Okay, so I think it was to show different points of view, like from like how certain people's perspective, you can see how she was, you know, a mother figure to Layla, but she was a burden to Jalil and Nana and Rashid, and then to like different points of view to see how she affected people differently.
Okay, well, it kind of made me think, and I feel like it has something to do with what the author was either going through or what he have seen before, or maybe experienced, because just not even just Miriam, but all of the women characters were portrayed as like useless or just powerless, like, I mean, we have talked about, but Miriam specifically, she just, I feel like, yeah, I just feel like it had a lot of what the author has seen before or what he had been through. I'm just gonna say that I don't think it was just Miriam that was a controversial character. I feel like the author made I feel like all of the women in the book made up what makes a woman. I feel like because Miriam was weak and she went through a lot of pain, so I feel like pain was one of the emotions that make up a woman. Layla was strong and independent. I feel like that was one of the characteristics that make up a woman. And who was Fariba was very emotional when her son died. So I feel like each character indirectly shows the emotion or the characteristics that the author seems to think makes up a woman, that it may be a woman in his life or a woman he may know personally, or just women that he has encountered problems with.
In the end, do you believe any of the characters achieve true happiness?
Yes.
Yeah. I think they all did.
Specifically, I believe Miriam achieved true happiness. Even though her death was horrible, she still was able to have the family that she always wanted, and in some quality, she was able to gain her own way of life in a way.
And also, like, she was, like, longing for love. Like, she wanted that love and affection from either her parents or whoever, and she never was able to get that. So when she met Layla and Azia, like, that was her way of, you know,
I feel like Layla did definitely, because when Tariq had so-called passed, so what they said, she just lost herself. Like, Tariq they was real close, so when she found out that he passed and he came back, it was just like a shocker to him. Like she said, she couldn't help herself but to run to him. It was just a relief for her. But I think in the end, after Marimum died and her having another baby, I think it was for her to have, I think she said if she was having a girl, she was gonna name her Marimum. I think that was a thing to keep Marimum in her spirit. So yeah.
A couple of you spoke of Marion to be strong because she let another woman come in her house and sleep with her man, and she learned to love her kids and love her. But my question is, like, why would you see that as strong and not weak?
She was strong for,
Go ahead.
but she wasn't just strong for that. She was strong for a lot of other reasons. It was just one of the few that made her strong. But that wasn't the only thing that made her a strong woman. Based on what she's been through growing up and dealing with an abusive husband, and also letting another woman come in and having a father that didn't really want you around, didn't love you, and having a mother that committed suicide because you left, that made her strong. Not because she let another woman come in. It was just one of the factors that made her strong.
But I didn't say what were other factors. I said, why was that a factor of being
I
strong?
think, like, in their culture, like, they have men who marry multiple women. And I think that made her strong because when you marry a man and you thought, well, let's remember that she was forced into a marriage relationship. She didn't really want to marry him. And she just wanted a family and to make him happy at the end. So when Layla and her kids came along, she found happiness within them because she could finally get the family that she always wanted, minus what she did. And I think that made her strong because she can love some children that don't come from her, but she knows that this makes her manhood happy and makes her husband happy. And they're finding happiness within someone else, what someone else could give to someone that you couldn't give to your man.
I'll say my question. Was there any redemption in your story, and if it was, what do you think it says about the characters involved?
Okay. So I think Jaleel has the most redemption because he, in the beginning, when Marion was first born, he didn't really want anything to do with her because he was ashamed of her and her mother. Because he wasn't married to Nana when they had Marion, so he kind of just shipped them away. So in the beginning, he